Good morning. It's a beautiful morning in Sharjah, beautiful morning, I guess, in Abu Dhabi as well, and Mr. Muhammad with us from Abu Dhabi. Today is a very special day for a reason, honestly. I mean, for several reasons. Number one, because we meet together, and this is really amazing. Every morning we see you. We feel, inshallah, things will be amazing, and our education system is safe and excellent, even though the pandemic is there and still there, and we are during the pandemic, but there is always opportunities for innovation. Now, for today is a special day because we're launching a new project. This project targeting the second indicator. You know, in Sharjah Private Education Authority, we focus on three main indicators: students' health and safety, students' well-being, and students' learning. And to ensure students' well-being, we need to ensure that they're safe. And this is one of the main focus points for us. And being safe, honestly, it's not only physically, it's now e-safety is important for us. And you know, and we see many stories in our schools, whether bullying or other issues, you all know it, honestly. And we hear the news as well. So this is why this project actually is very important for us. Since we are shifting to hybrid model and we are shifting sometimes to online as well, so this is a priority. Now the e-safety is priority for us and for all schools. And in order to ensure that our schools are safe, we have a wonderful partnership with program Aqdar that you have received the email. I will leave actually the introduction to the program and the framework and the process and everything to Mr. Muhammad with us today from Aqdar program, and he will answer all your questions, and we will be together actually not only today, for the rest of the year. And Mr. Muhammad, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hanada. And thank you for the amazing introduction. Yes, weather is amazing in Abu Dhabi. We all know it will last for maybe 6 hours throughout the entire year. So yay, let's enjoy it. So, and as Ms. Hanada said, online safety is the topic nowadays. And it's an important concept. It's something that just jumped in. It was there years ago. Khalifa Empowerment Program have started with the online safety, and maybe 6 or 7 years ago, extensive training programs, extensive awareness programs that were designed for the entire community. But since the pandemic, online safety became the main the main topic that we need to consider, the main topic that we need to work with. So in today's session, we will go through the Aqdar eSafe School, and that's the framework, how it was developed, and why this program is important, and how as a school I could go through the framework and mature, or basically move from a level to the next level, and what's my expectation as a school, the self-assessment, and we will look into the platform. We will do, like some sort of a demo to see what is the expectation. Of course, throughout the day, we'll be taking questions, and Ms. Hunada will be there with me to support and, basically to lead and facilitate the session. So if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat, or if there is a window for questions, and Ms. Hunada will let you know, ask your questions. So before we get to the pandemic.
Sorry, Mr. Muhammad. Can I sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I mean, they know me, and now you will know me in like 5 minutes. I do ask questions, but just I want to emphasize on something you've mentioned, that this program actually, it's a partnership with the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Education, and Aqdar and SPIA. So we have like those partners to ensure that our schools are safe, and they will be framework, as you mentioned. There will be, as you mentioned, like self-evaluation, and there will be a review visits as well and programs after that. Am I correct? Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Thank you, Nada. So, and before we talk about the now and the then, the future, let's talk about, the past decades. So, 50 years ago, those slides are taken. So, 50 years ago, basically, education was a standard, traditional blackboard, whiteboard, and the biggest innovation that we've seen was the move from a chalk stick all the way to a black marker. That was the biggest jump in education in the past 40 years, all the way until 2010, 2011. Then all of a sudden, technologies, blended learning, one-on-one and one-to-one schools, one-on-one schools, and smart boards, and so on. So schools became more connected, technologies became more available. Everyone now is in one way or another connected, and that's all before COVID. Then COVID came in, the pandemic hit us, and overnight, all of our students have moved from their normal classes to virtual classes at home. Many schools were not ready, many schools were not prepared. And actually, let's not say schools, many countries were not ready or prepared, many parents were not ready or prepared. Now the child is home at all times, glued to his device. Is he safe? Physically, probably yes. He's sitting next to me as a parent. I can oversee, I can monitor, but and who is he connected to? Who is there to protect him? I don't have the answers to these questions as a parent. And in many times, or in several occasions, the school doesn't have the answer to that as well. We've provided, what we were supposed to provide. We provided education, but what else? What should I do? So all of these areas are not clear. Now, then came Khalifa Empowerment Program. And in 2011, and under the guidance and patronage of His Highness Sheikh Saif bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and there was a concept for an awareness program, a national student awareness program. Okay, and who used to do the student awareness back then? Multiple entities, law enforcement, social, private, governmental, and individuals, volunteers. It was open for everyone. So we needed to ensure consistency in our messaging, consistency in our delivery, consistency in the information we share with people. Okay, and hence we've started with Khalifa Empowerment Program. So Khalifa Empowerment Program had a basic guidance. Okay, the program must be unique. Don't just copy paste things. Don't just replicate things that are in other countries. This program must be based on the best practices, both locally and internationally. And there should be a variety of methods to implement or to deliver these awareness sessions or awareness knowledge. It shouldn't be, like lectures, or videos. So I should implement, or I should incorporate all learning styles into this. It shouldn't be a law enforcement program. Okay, so the law enforcement part should be less than 10%. And finally, it should involve, other governmental departments. And that's how Khalifa Empowerment Program was born. Over 50 governmental, federal, and local authorities and departments have met, gathered, worked for over 2 years to develop the national document for student awareness. So this is the go-to, this is the Bible for awareness. Now, this document has 4 major pillars: and personal skills, national awareness, health and safety, crime prevention, with each having their own sub-pillars or sub-areas. eSafe School was born and as a part of the cyber crimes. So there are several initiatives for each one of these. Khalifa Empowerment Program have been super busy, and they've been keeping anyone who works with them, near them, super busy. A new initiative for youth, a new initiative for different community members every month. Some of these initiatives express your love for UAE, Act the Read and Write, and we had a competition for people of determination, and a writing competition. So basically, kids with disabilities published books, and those books were, proofread and published to the to everyone, and by Khalifa Empowerment Program. My Dream, My Life, another amazing initiative where students are handpicked, or basically classes are handpicked at different schools, and those students are supported from grade 1 to grade 12. At grade 1, they are asked, what's your dream? What do you want to be? The answer, let's say, a doctor. So throughout his entire academic life cycle, he will be supported, he will be guided to be a doctor. And the lecturers program, we have basically a database for all the lecturers in the country that's currently expanding to include other global, lecturers, where schools or entities could basically just request a lecturer. Akdar World Summit, this was a huge success. And we had 3 seasons so far. The first 2 were in Abu Dhabi, attended by 8+ ministers for each season. The third one was in Moscow, and really big, really huge. And the team who worked on the summit were awarded by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. So these are some of the initiatives that we are running. Now, as we said, 50 years ago, the education was the same way you see it. In those 50 years, it moved to a device in the hand of every student. And nowadays, based on some of the surveys we've done, actually every student has a minimum of 2 devices. Once you average it out across all students, the number is actually 2, okay, if not more. So every student has a device. Now, with COVID, again, a new set of risks came in, a new set of issues came in. Students, kids, children are connected at all times. Now, that created, as we said, a lot of risks. Some of them we know, we've encountered, we've been ready for, we've prepared for. Others we were not, actually. It just popped out. It was spreading somewhere else in the world. UAE was super safe, had no exposure to that. But now, considering everyone is connected, there is a chance that this might come in. Okay, so eSafe School, when before we go into the history or the content of the framework, eSafe School is a preventive framework. We are here to support schools to counter all these risks, to be ready to face those risks when they happen. So some of these risks are cyberbullying, you all know about, and people my generation and older might look at this as a joke, cyberbullying. So what? Someone insulted someone, like over a WhatsApp message. Both kids are alive, no one's bleeding. Let's move on. Well, once you look at the impact of cyberbullying, the psychological impact, the amount of suicide cases that resulted because of cyberbullying, the long-lasting psychological effect that children go through because of cyberbullying, you would understand how severe it is and what the role of the school in preventing this. And some of the things we've encountered or we are seeing now is xenophobia. Okay, so as you know, social media, everyone's on social media right now. Social media is designed in a way to brainwash people. Okay, I'm sorry to use the term, but the objective for a social media company is to keep people connected and for the longest time possible to see the maximum number of ads in order for them to generate revenue. It's that simple. So if you are interested in a certain topic, they will flood you with similar topics, with similar individuals. So if one of the children, out of curiosity, looks at a topic that promotes xenophobia, okay, guess what? The day after and the days after, he will have a lot of posts, a lot of related content that has to do with xenophobia. And over time, this could basically, I would say, brainwash him or build a certain perspective in his head, who is good, who is bad, foreigners are good, and basically, and the opposite of tolerance, the opposite of the spirit of UAE. Okay, so this is one of the risks that we are facing. Racism, again, that's a common risk. Just open any Facebook page and you would see, people exchanging racial insults. Okay, and as an adult, I can filter this. I can take a look and just scroll up and down and ignore it. But a child may not be able or is not developed enough to understand this. He might think that, well, this is important or this is factual. And extremism, it's there. We've all heard about and recruit, certain bad organizations and recruiting kids or spreading bad messages to children. And of course, we won't forget harassment, whether it's normal harassment, sexual harassment, grooming, and all types. So what we've picked is just a sample of a big, or huge list of risks that our children might see or might encounter every day. Now, the solution was to start a big awareness campaign. So the slide is in Arabic, and I'll just go through it. So Khalifa Empowerment Program and have started the e-awareness program. This was a huge success again, and over 250,000 students were trained nationwide. Basically, every governmental school was visited, and at least once. Many were visited multiple times, and non-stop and awareness programs, lectures, and 15,000 teachers, if I'm not mistaken, or over 15,000 teachers were trained, and a lot of curriculums, programs, and tools, technologies, supporting material, resources were published and provided to schools and across the country. So this was the foundation of eSafe School. Once we've trained almost every child in UAE or every child in a governmental school in UAE, okay, these are some of the pictures of these workshops. Okay, these are, the Cyber C3 certificate that was shared with everyone, and our e-learning platform that was again shared with everyone to learn about Cyber C3, digital citizenship, curriculum for all grade 11 students, moral education in the digital world for all grade 12 students. So all of these initiatives were shared with everyone, okay? But this brought a question, okay, and for how long the information I'm sharing is being retained, and what is my long-term impact? Am I really making an impact? The answer for a long-term impact, of course, we would need to go long-term to calculate it, but the immediate answer was, yes, we are making an impact right now, but it's not as lasting as we wanted. So the alternative was, instead of approaching students, approaching parents individually, no, let's approach the organization that parents and students spend most of their life in. Okay, the answer actually is not home. The answer is the school. The time spent home, you are asleep half of it. The other half, you are either running errands or doing something else. So the most consistent organization in every child's life is the school. Okay, so that's how we started the eSafe School program. Now, before I move on, Hunada, would you like to add something or take questions?
Well, thank you, Mr. Muhammad. It's really interesting. The program obviously very successful, and it's international, won many prizes. And this is really assuring to our schools that it will help them, inshallah. And if you have any question, please post it on the chat. I will transfer it to Mr. Muhammad. What I would like actually to highlight one thing from what you mentioned, Mr. Muhammad, about spending most of the time in schools for students. Technically now, our students with the pandemic, during the pandemic, and even teachers and even parents, and even myself, spending over 9 hours over facing this screen and talking to people, some of them, and you know that, many of people that we didn't meet yet face to face, and many programs we're dealing with at the moment, we don't know everything about them. And just if we imagine for a second with our students' curiosity, where that could take them. So I'm just highlighting how important and how amazing to have this program that's worldwide approved, and the risk we have in every education system, and specifically now we're in the transition, we have a high risk. So imagine our students facing the screen for maybe, I don't know, it depends, from 6 hours to 9 hours. We need to ensure that they're safe in this new world. And really appreciate that, Mr. Muhammad, and we can go on. And someone is asking about the translation. Yes, there is a translation. please click on the English icon and you can see the Japanese, which is the Arabic one. We'd like to confuse you a little bit and to see how you're going to react if you see the Japanese language. There is another question talking about when the evaluation, or what we call it, the review visits, will happen. We will keep you posted, don't worry. We will give you not a long time, but we will give you the appropriate amount of time, and we will keep you posted. We're going to do this together. And we can go on, Mr. Muhammad.
Thank you, Nada. And by the way, I'm really excited when people ask, when are you coming to see us? That question could either mean, please don't come now, or please come immediately. We want you. We want this framework. Let's hope it's the second one. So as Ms. Nada said, this will be communicated to you, and you would know, like when, where, how, and what. All the instructions will be sent to every school. So, and going back to the eSafe School initiative. So this initiative, as Ms. Nada said, it was a collaboration between multiple, first of all, it's under the patronage of His Highness and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Okay, so this was again one more success for the initiative. And so now the scope is national, and the directive is national, the vision is national. Okay, so this will be implemented everywhere. It's a collaboration between Khalifa Empowerment Program, Ministry of Education, SPIA, ADIC, KHDA, and multiple other initiatives, and multiple other entities, sorry, with every entity taking the charge and lead in their domain or their area. And a huge thanks to SPIA and to Hunada for facilitating and managing this initiative across all SPIA schools. Okay, so, and our objective at the end of the day is to visit, evaluate, and support every school. Now, the word evaluate would come a lot throughout the presentation. And I know from my interaction with the schools, evaluation doesn't always come, like as a positive word. Evaluation means a lot of documentation, a lot of work, a lot of prep. And if the feedback is negative, this might impact the school. I assure you, this is not the case with eSafe School. We are not here to say school X is better than school Y, A is not performing, C is not doing well. No. Our objective is to see what school X is doing, what school A is doing, okay, what's good at school X, and we tell them, you know what, this is good, thank you. And what could be improved, and we tell them, this could be improved, and here's how you can improve it. Now, this improvement would come in multiple forms. It might come in a direct advice, like steps that the school needs to take, or it could come in a workshop or resources, all of which will be provided by Khalifa Empowerment Program to support the school. So don't look at this as any other evaluation and wow, now we need to raise code red and like panic. No, it is an evaluation. Yes, it will reach a judgment at the end. Yes, but the objective of this evaluation is to support the school, not to penalize, not to criticize, not to discredit, and definitely not to add an additional burden on the school. Now, this video basically will summarize eSafe School in its entirety, and then we will go into the detailed aspects and the detailed information.
مع تطور التعليم وإدخال التعلم الذكي في المدارس، زادت نسبة المخاطر الإلكترونية كالتنمر الإلكتروني، الفكر المتطرف والمتعصب.
Sorry, can you hear it?
الشائعة، المحتوى الغير أخلاقي. ومن هنا نبعت الحاجة لخلق منظومة متكاملة تعنى برفع مستوى السلامة الرقمية في المدارس، وعليه وبتوجيهات الفريق سمو الشيخ سيف بن زايد آل نهيان تم توفير نظام تقييم شامل مكون من 21 معيارا لتقييم مبني على أحدث النظم العالمية في مجال السلامة الرقمية تحت مسمى المدرسة الآمنة رقميا.
So this is basically a small summary about eSafe School. This should, like help me as a school or as an individual get the concept in a second. Now I know what is it about. The next question is, what do you expect me to do? So as we said, it's an initiative by Khalifa Empowerment Program. And this, by the way, this initiative came as a follow-up or was based on the foundation of the 250,000 students that we trained. And this is based on 5 years of research, comparison, looking at local data, looking at international best practices. Okay. Now, and this is the first initiative, or the first time an Arabic country launches an online safety framework and a dedicated online safety framework. And now this, along with the one that was launched yesterday, and the well-being, digital well-being policy and digital well-being framework, and an upcoming online safety policy that will be launched, UAE will be in a unique position, and I would say miles and miles and ahead of everyone else in terms of providing a safer environment for their students. Now, an eSafe School have actually won the first place award and by the WSIS, the World Summit of Information Society. Again, this was a tough competition and the WSIS is a subsidiary of the ITU. It's under the United Nations. So we've competed against 32 other countries, and the eSafe School in its pilot, based only on the pilot stage data, won the first award, okay, in the toughest category. So it was government versus government. Now, an eSafe School, again, and the initial concept we've looked across multiple countries, and the initial concept came from the UK. They had a similar program, 360 Safe. That program was the foundation. We've adopted that, completely customized it to fit into UAE culture, to fit into UAE schools context, and then we've produced the Akdar eSafe School. Now, eSafe School, like any other framework, the Akdar eSafe School has pillars. Our pillars are policy and leadership, infrastructure, education, monitoring, and impact. Now, for each of those, we would have, for each of those elements, we would have strands, and under these strands, we would have aspects. So the total number of aspects is 21. Each school will be evaluated against those 21 aspects. Now, if we go in a general way, like just look at the overall policy and leadership, we will be looking at the policies implemented in the school and how it is implemented and who manages this, who developed it. Of course, when we say policy, we are looking at online safety related policies. And we'll be also looking at the leadership, the responsibilities, and who leads the online safety efforts in the school, and what's his role, who supports him. These are some of the questions we'll ask across the 11 aspects under policy and leadership. In infrastructure, that's more technical. We'll be looking at the technical security in the school, filtering, password management. Basically, how do you protect your students from external attacks or from external threats using technology. The next one is education. In education, we'll be looking at all types of knowledge transfer that happens within the school to all school community members. So we'll be looking at children and young people. We'll be looking at the online safety education you provide, whether it's through the curriculum or through extracurricular activities. We'll be looking at digital citizenship programs that you have in the school. We'll be looking at youth contribution. Are your students and silent group, silent participants, or they have a contribution in the overall online safety in the school? We'll be looking at parents' engagement. How does the school train parents? How does the school transfer online safety knowledge to parents? And finally, we'll be looking at staff training. And as you know, if we train our employees very well, they will convey the message to the students, and subsequently the entire school community would be safe. And my final element is monitoring and impact. And in here, we'll be looking at how does the school monitors and online safety incidents, okay, and how it is reported and how it is handled. How would the school anticipate online safety incidents even before they happen, and through reviewing of previous logs, through processes that they have in the place and in the school. And finally, impact, which is basically a response to the question, am I making a difference? Is my work successful? Okay, a school might do a lot, but at the end of the day, realize that I didn't make any difference. Okay, kids are still being attacked and hacked. People are being, bullied. So these are the general elements that we'll look at. Now, in more details, I'll go quickly through them. All of them will be explained in a boring detail in the assessor in the framework, on the website, and in the evaluation guide that will be shared with you. So in here, we'll be looking at the online safety leader, who is the person responsible for online safety efforts in the school, an online safety group who supports him, okay, an online safety policy. Does the school have a standalone online safety policy, basically a source document or a document that has roles and responsibilities, references to other school policies, and has clear sanctions and defines and the expectations from all school community members and so on. Next one, and is an important one, whole school. So whole school basically means, are my policies integrated? Is online safety integrated with everything else that I'm doing or not? Or it's just a concept or a document that you've prepared for the sake of evaluation only. So naturally, for a successful whole school, I would expect online safety to be referenced in other school policies, in their bullying policy, in their safeguarding policy, in their health and safety policy, in their disciplinary policy or behavioral policy. And I would expect cross-referencing in the online safety policy. So basically all my documents, all my policies are cross-referenced. And my next aspect is strategies for managing an unacceptable use. Okay, so that's basically how would the school deal with positive behavior? How would the school deal with negative behavior? Whether this behavior came from students, parents, and or any other or staff or any other community member. Now, this is important, and because the MOE have already provided a set of guidelines, if I'm not mistaken, the behavioral policy that's there implemented in many schools. And there are many schools who've developed their own or basically added their own process on top of it. And so that's what we would look at. And next one is reporting. I will just go through policy and leadership and then we'll stop. I see a lot of people have raised their hands, so we'll go through the first element and then we'll take questions. Yeah, what do you think, Ms. Hanada?
Well, sounds excellent. Yes, and we have several questions in the chat, but it sounds interesting. The four, what we call you call them, Mr. Muhammad?
Yeah, elements.
Pillars or elements. Yeah, from my inspection background, I call them indicators. So it's I need to transfer to pillar. Okay, pillar. I like that. Excellent. Yes, we can take questions after the first pillar.
True. So, and in here, the next one is reporting. This is an important one. In reporting, we'll be looking at how online safety incidents are reported and what is the process that you have in the school. And if a child has an issue, can he report that anonymously? And this is, for example, one of the things that we need to add in the overall culture change. As we said, the final goal of the initiative is to do a nationwide culture change, embed online safety in everything. So reporting, one of the things we've noticed, and anonymous reporting, that concept is an alien concept to many schools. Why would a student report something without disclosing his identity? Okay, and well, through research, through like in previous cases, we've seen that many students, especially in conservative communities, will not report an online safety incident that might not be acceptable by the community standard. Something like harassment, something like, like I would say blackmail or emotional blackmail. So for an incident like this, it would be very rare for someone to report if we don't assure them that, sure, you can report. I really don't care about who you are. I don't want your information. And if you don't feel well about reporting in the school, you can report directly to the authorities. These are the hotlines. These are the numbers that you can use. So reporting is an important aspect. And mobile, next one is mobile devices. So in here we'll be looking at all types of mobile devices, not linked to cellular, not limited to cellular phones. So we'll be looking at tablets, laptops. We'll be looking at the policies that governs this. We'll be looking at how does the school manage and deploy these devices. Is there a bring your own device policy? What are the expectations in this policy? What is the technical? We'll be looking at the technical side of the policy as well, and how it is implemented. I understand with COVID, many schools had to go in a race against time to provide devices for their students to ensure that their learning journey is not interrupted. Okay, so every student have received his device, but now are those devices monitored? As a school, can I prevent abuse? Can I protect students from accessing inappropriate content? So all of these questions will be asked in mobile devices. Managing digital content, and this one is an important one for the school. So we'll be looking at the school's digital reputation, and does the school control or oversee what's posted about it online, and who does the moderation, and does the school accept or takes parental consents when when covering an event or taking a picture of a student, and or before publishing? Are those events covered by school staff or contractors or third party or other vendors? Okay, once that happens, who owns the right to those footages? Some of the cases we've seen globally and we've seen in many places is a student would bring a vendor to cover an event, a graduation, National Day, or any other celebration in the school. Now, the vendor does the coverage, shares the final product with the school, and then posts student pictures or snippets of that video on his own social media platforms, okay, as a marketing material. Now, as a parent, I didn't consent to that. And even if I have signed a consent, my consent was limited to the school. Okay, but now my children pictures and information being used commercially by someone I don't know, well, that could open the school to a lot of liability. So these are some of the things we'll be looking at: where the data is stored, where the data is saved, and who has access to it, CCTV footages. And we've seen schools, globally, that recruit I would say third-party companies to install, configure, manage, and host all of their CCTV recordings. Okay, and the outcome: a school in the United States with the recordings in China or Russia. Okay, now who owns the recording? Who has access to it? All of these questions are questions that the school should know. Now, when we ask these questions, I know some of these questions might sound technical, might sound a little bit in detail. We are not here to just challenge the school and make their life hard. No, absolutely not. We are here to point you toward, you see, if I'm asking this question, then there is a chance that someone else has figured this out and you are at risk. So here's what you need to do to improve and eliminate this. Now, my final aspect in here is professional standards. So in here, we'll be looking at staff communication. Okay, you've all seen the news. Globally, every year you have dozens of cases where inappropriate contact between an adult and a minor in a school has happened. Okay, mostly and starts over social media. How this communication is governed, how this communication is controlled. Okay, what are the guidelines? What's the school liability or school role in this? Okay, and what kind of training was given. And even if you look at normal communication with parents, you don't see consistency across schools. Okay, some schools, teachers would contact parents directly. Some other schools, and no, there is a focal point that you contact using only tracked and monitored communication channels. Okay, so I'm not here to tell schools how to do their job. I'm here to tell them this is the best practice. If you do this, this might have this outcome or this might have that risk. So this is the best way for you to protect yourself. So that's policy and leadership. Policy and leadership is the heaviest one. And even in the evaluation visit, it's the one that consumes the most time. I would recommend the school principals who will be talking about policy and leadership or will be sitting to have a bottle of water next to them. You would need it when it comes to policy and leadership evaluation. Now, and I'm ready for your questions before moving on.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Actually, it's very interesting. You know why? Because I think what you have presented can apply for everything we need to achieve. The process to ensure, because I'm going to, if you give me just a few minutes to review this with our principals. Yeah, you asked here for online safety leader, which is someone to lead something. So any aspect we need to achieve in our school, we need someone to lead it with the clear roles and responsibilities. And I think our e-safe school officers that we have in the session today, this will be their roles and responsibility for this. Now, online safety group as well, this is wonderful, like we're creating a community to ensure that we're applying this. Now, online safety policy, it's like the rules they need to follow. So everything we need to ensure it's happening in our schools, we need as a policy to be followed. Acceptable use policy, how we share the policy, how we ensure our stakeholders know about the policy, how we ensure that actually the policy has been used in all our stakeholders. So not only the whole schools, honestly, even parents and students and other stakeholders. Now, strategies for managing acceptable use. What our strategies to ensure that the policy is applied well? Reporting is essential, and we have very good question about reporting. In a minute, I'll talk about it. And then the devices and the digital content and the professional standards. This is really amazing, honestly. If we follow this in anything we want to achieve, that would be excellent. Now, some questions came. I'm going to capture most of them, talking about the well-being policy. Where can we have the well-being policy? It's an interesting question. I believe every school is supposed to have the well-being policy. Correct me, Mr. Muhammad, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
They need to create their own policy and to ensure it's actually protecting students, aligned with the framework, aligned with the national agenda, aligned with the international standards. And I think with our review visits in May, that was one of the main elements we asked for it. The other question, does it require to control through the IT infrastructure, such as content filtering and other stuff? So what do you think, Mr. Muhammad?
Okay, so if you are referring to, or if the question is referring to mobile devices, if I'm not mistaken. So in here, in mobile devices, there are two sides that we will look at. The first side is the policy and guideline side. Okay, now, and in many schools, mobiles are not allowed. Students are not allowed to bring cellular phones. That's a policy. Okay, that's the written policy. And you are not allowed to play games while being in class. That's a policy. It's written somewhere. So we will look at that part. Okay, what is your policy? What are your guidelines? What the next question would be, okay, you have an amazing policy. How is it enforced? So we will look at the technical part. You would say, well, I'm using an MDM that prohibits students from doing so and so, or all the devices are pre-configured to not accept any other external content or external link, or simply I use awareness. That's my way of protection. I have ongoing awareness, students are aware, and I have a set of disciplinary actions or behavioral, and I would say behavioral policy that I would use in case one of the students abuses my policy. So that's what we are going to look at. We'll be looking at the technical side for sure, and we'll be looking at the policy side as well.
Excellent. Another question came about the age of a child. If we can include the 3 and 4 years old in this?
No, the target audience is, or the target group is in grade 1 and through 12. So
Right.
kindergartens and younger, not yet, but hopefully in the future there will be a dedicated framework for an early childhood.
Okay, excellent. Another question talking about the frameworks, if they can have it in a Word format.
Word format, I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure about that as well.
Definitely a PDF, yes, but a Word format, I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, I mean, all schools at the moment, they have it
Yes.
in PDF format. Okay, another question from Mr. Saleh, which is interesting question talking about the reporting and it's risky. Is it true that it may encourage shy individuals to speak out, but it may also encourage different individuals to make accusations? And how can we ensure that those the accusations, they're valid or to verify them?
Okay.
So what do you think?
That is a valid point, and that was raised earlier, but let's look at, you know, the two sides of the equation, okay, or the two scenarios that we have. And we do have an anonymous reporting tool where students can report and harm, can report online safety issues that they encounter, and these issues are dealt with, okay? And some students might abuse it. The other scenario is we don't have that channel in place. Students don't have any way or an anonymous channel to report harm or to report online safety incident that they don't want to, you know, link to their to themselves, or they don't want to disclose their identity. So, and both scenarios have pros and cons, but once you weigh them out, you would see that the first option is much better. I would take one or two, you know, and reports, and students might do that, you know, like in a way of, you know, like as a joke and trying to be funny. As a school, the school can investigate, the school can look into it, and the school can resolve it. And if someone really wants to do harm, they can do the exact same thing using the existing numbers and existing hotlines. Sharjah has multiple hotlines for childcare and online safety. And on the federal level, there are multiple hotlines and multiple contact and numbers that students can call. Okay, so if the intent to do a malicious act is there, there would be multiple channels. I mean, you won't be able to stop them. However, having that line in place or having that channel in place, and what doesn't have to be something expensive or something complex, a simple form that is shared with everyone, a simple digital form that where everyone can access without using their email, without using their personal information, and they can just fill up, you know, like, I have an issue. I'm a grade 7 student and I'm suffering from continuous bullying. To me, as a school leadership, that's all the info I need. Thank you. I know I have a bullying case and I have that case in grade 7. I can deal with it from here on. Okay, I can do what I would do, you know, like to eliminate this. But imagine if that line is not there. Okay, and yes, I might receive an, you know, like comment, I'm being harassed or I'm being blackmailed and I don't know what to do. And this happens more often than you could imagine, at least globally. Okay, and emotional blackmail is a big thing. So someone got into my personal documents, personal folders, personal pictures, and I'm being blackmailed. I'm panicking. What should I do? Okay, and in many cases, the school's role could be simply just give them a nudge toward calling law enforcement. Don't worry, child, you can call this number. Okay, that's the hotline for Sharjah police or community police or a federal number or child protection. They would definitely support you. You don't have to worry about anything. Okay, just call them. That's all the assurances maybe a child would need. But if that nudge, if that gentle nudge is not there, okay, imagine what could happen. The child blackmailed over and over and over again, up to an extreme level that, God forbid, we don't want to even think about. Does this answer your question, Mr. Saleh?
I think so. Also, I can allow actually Mr. Saleh to unmute himself. But I would say yes, because we've seen severe cases, honestly, not in our schools, but internationally, where
Yes.
we couldn't hear the student's voice, and it has really bad end. So yeah, we need to hear to students' voice. Another question about the well-being standards. And I think here, Mr. Muhammad, they're asking if there is a well-being standards in the framework. And I think there is a difference between the well-being standards and well-being policy. So if you like to highlight this a little bit.
Yes, if I may zoom in a little bit. Yes, okay. So it's a whole policy. So my bad, small font. So so in here, in policy and leadership, what we look at is the whole school. In the whole school, we'll be looking at the integration and cross-referencing of policies. Okay, a school has an online safety policy. This is my foundation, the online safety policy. It's slightly different than the well-being. Okay, so the well-being policy should be, parallel and has a little bit of more scope in certain areas, less scope in other areas. So those policies, online safety policy and well-being policy, and overlap. Okay, there are a lot of similarities. However, when I say online safety policy, what I'm looking for is the go-to document for all online safety guidelines in the school. A document that would answer the following questions: who is responsible for online safety in the school? What are his responsibilities, okay, or duties, okay, and who else? What about that person or that community and school community group? Okay, what's their expectations? Now, what is allowed and what's not allowed? Now, what will happen if I violate those guidelines, if I do something that is allowed, or do something that is not allowed, or and do the opposite? What would be the consequences? What's the guide? Which policy would take me to that? Okay. And what about teachers? What about parents? And now I'm a member of this school community. I would like to learn about online safety. What are the guidelines that have to do with online safety knowledge and awareness programs? So these are the kind of questions we will look at. Many schools might have this scattered across multiple policies. Now, having those items scattered across multiple policies was something that we've seen through research and through, and multiple pilot visits, is that it won't achieve the impact, the desire. And online safety, and if you look at education, is listed or cleared in a certain document or a policy with someone, and technology is with someone else, and guidelines on behavior and the disciplinary actions is with a different department or with someone else, and so on. So at the end of the day, let's be honest, everyone in this Zoom meeting is working, a full day. Okay, if you have 8 hours, 8 working hours, probably like contractually, probably you are doing 9 or 10, if not more. So over time, this takes away or reduces the whole communication part. Okay, each part becomes an isolated part, and online safety loses its rigor. So having all of that in one policy and managed by one person who leads one team ensures that online safety will always be front and center. Even when we go back to normal, face-to-face and education, normal classes, and we don't want things to be, no more Zoom, no more Teams, you know what? We don't need any of those policies. No, this framework was designed years before COVID. I think it was designed even before they invented bats, so it was long ago before someone ate a bat and caused COVID. So this framework is to govern and provide an overall comprehensive protection and for everyone, okay, whether in the school or outside the school.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Muhammad. It seems we have another 2 questions, and by 11, we need to have a break maybe for 5 minutes for our principals to get another cup of coffee and get back again to another hour. But the question here is talking about, and maybe I'm sure it will come later in our training, the
Yes.
exact role of the leader of the e-safety officer. So they want the exact role of the
Okay.
e-safety leader.
That's a good question. So the exact role, as we said, this framework doesn't dictate. Okay, it doesn't tell you you need to do this way. Okay, and the general guidelines or the general expectations from an online safety leader is that the online safety leader is someone who has pastoral training or pastoral background and has a childcare related role in the school, usually the social worker or the advisor or career counselor, usually one of those, or child protection officer or designated safeguarding lead. One of those roles are the more ideal. I'm not telling you who to put, but it's usually, you know, like in that domain. Now that person, whoever the school picks or whoever the principal decides is the best one, should have a certain level of authority. Okay, and in case, let's say, they want to implement a new policy, okay, they need to propose a new idea, they should have a certain level of authority, or I would say decision influence power, to say this is what we need to achieve a safer environment. That person should have access to students, okay, and shouldn't be bound by teaching periods or teaching classes. So many schools would pick a teacher for this role, and again, that's the school decision. And however, a teacher at the end of the day will have to deliver a certain number of periods across the day. When he's doing that, he's not accessible to other students. He cannot support, he cannot deal and provide the safeguarding needed. So these are the general expectations. We would expect the person to manage online safety training, manage all aspects of online safety. Now, the detailed job description or the detailed responsibility might differ based on the school context, and we would leave that to you. The evaluation team would ask what exactly is he doing, would ask him, would ask the other school community member, and we would look through the documents uploaded.
So, thank you, Mr. Muhammad. I like that. And I would say the roles also for the leader to ensure to apply the framework well, to ensure
Absolutely.
that
That's
to
another
ensure
thing. Yes, yes.
to manage the project, to ensure all the steps of the project happened correctly, and to ensure your school is safe, and you will be responsible in front of course, your principals and SPIA. I mean, I'm scaring you. Actually, we will be together in this, and yeah, we will ensure.
You've
Yeah.
added one important point. Thank you, Hunada. Really, thank you. And one of the things that are being planned that will happen and down the road is that, and we will form online safety officers or online safety leads communities across country, okay, to share best practices. And we will have a dedicated training. We are working with our partners in the UK and to arrange a session for the online safety leads in every school across UAE. So we will have webinars, or we will have, you know, like gatherings. Let's hope, you know, we can go back to physical activities. So, and it's important that whoever you select in the school is a person who can follow through, who can use this training, okay? And if you select, let's say, the gardener, or let's say a gym teacher, or a teacher who has 38 periods per week, okay, and it's pointless. We won't be achieving online safety. We will have documentation, we will have, you know, like, yes, we have someone, this is his roles, the responsibilities, and an evidence that he had a couple of meetings, but at the end of the day, only you as a school can answer this question: is my school safe? Okay, and is this person is going to make my school safe or not?
Excellent. I think now we can have like a break for like 10 minutes and I'll be back. And you all, I mean, usually if it's the training more than 1 hour, we take like between 10 to 15 minutes. 15 minutes if it's 3 hours. Since it's 2 hours, we're going to take only 10 minutes. And will we be back in 10 minutes? We can put our camera off, our mic off, and get your second cup of coffee. And we'll be back at 11. 10.
Thank you, Hunada. Honestly, I was expecting, people to say in the chat, no, we don't want a break. We are enjoying this so much. Please continue. Like my ego's hurt, but it's fine.
we do enjoy that, Mr. Muhammad. And see, I can see that our principals and participants, they're saying we are enjoying. So, but yeah, we want them to enjoy more with the second
They
cup
will.
of coffee.
They will definitely do. Once we are done with the theory and we get into the system, you would see how amazing and fun it is. So
Okay.
thank you, Hunada.
Here we go. We have someone is saying we don't want a break.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a relief. Excellent. We will be back, inshallah, 11:10, and see you.
Inshallah. Thank you. Thank you.
لا لم تنتهي المحاضرة، لكن نحن في بريك. طبعا عدنا قبل نهاية البريك لأنه البعض ظن إنه sorry we came back earlier because some of you actually they didn't think that we are in break and they thought it's finished. It's not. So I will ask you to bear with us all the time. Okay, so we're back actually now. It's 1 minute to be 11:10, but yeah, we can continue. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad, for being with us.
And then for those who didn't go on a break, and I know a cup of coffee is precious, really precious, but I promise you the training will compensate for that cup of coffee. Okay. And then if you want, feel free to like turn off the camera, grab a cup of coffee, and we promise you we are not looking if your camera is turned off. So going back to the rest of the aspects, and the next pillar or the next element in the framework is infrastructure. Now, this one is a bit technical, okay? So even when we visit the school, we won't be asking school leadership about this. We'll be sitting with the school IT, okay? And you will receive, like in the invitation you would receive, there will be a dedicated meeting for the IT team. So in here, we'll be looking at password security. What are the password? What are the passwords? What is the password policy in place? The guidelines you share with your school community, and how those guidelines and expectations are enforced. So a simple example: a school would share a policy and would say we have complex passwords, and all passwords should be changed in 30 days. Everything should be, according to policy. But then once we look at the back end of the system, okay, and we would realize that, and these are not enforced, or the school doesn't have the systems or the tools to enforce this policy. Okay, so it's really simple. And once we look at the framework, you would see how straightforward it is, what the school is expected to do, and guidelines or the policy, and an awareness training. And you've seen a lot of cases, especially in the early days of the pandemic, of students accessing other students' accounts, and of students and taking credentials, schools using a common password for everyone, school and students and in lower grades or younger students having their own credentials and not knowing how to handle it, or credentials being sent to parents, and parents who are technically challenged, let's just put it this way. So all of these elements or all of these parts are what we are going to look for, and then ask the school to either improve or evidence. In filtering, and I would say we are lucky to be in the UAE, and the national filtering policy that is provided by our ISP or internet service provider is very strong. So by default, most inappropriate websites are blocked, most adult content are blocked, and drugs-related websites, hate-related websites, all of those are blocked. However, this leaves millions of other websites that might look acceptable, might look okay by the standards of an internet service provider, but they may not be as safe or as okay to a student. Okay, so we will be looking at what kind of filtering policy the school has, how do they moderate access, how do they control, and what kind of content can be reached, and do they have different roles, or it's one policy for all, no one can access anything? Do students and teachers have different access levels? And what happens if someone tries to bypass this? Are those logged? Is the school leadership involved in the decision making? One of the lessons learned in the earlier stages is that the whole IT part is basically left to the IT guy in the school. Huge burden, huge responsibility. And I would understand. And I come from a strong IT background, but many evaluators, school leadership are purely coming from an academia background. They are not supposed to know different encryption or different password or different filtering policies, but it's important for school leadership to be somehow involved in the process and design the general or oversee the general flow of information. Okay, what's allowed, what's not allowed, when, who should be allowed and why, and how this is documented and processed. Now, and before moving on to the next one, I would actually like go back real quick to the previous one, policy and leadership. So in here, in reporting and acceptable use, in managing digital content, and in many places in mobile devices, and we'll be asking questions where the school's response is, we don't have it. What about reporting logs? We don't have any online safety incidents. Our kids are angels. And mobile devices, we don't have any mobile devices. Hence, we don't have a policy. And what about digital content? We don't have any social media account. Hence, we don't have any of that. So in the evaluation, we won't be just looking at an evidence that something has happened, okay? We'll be looking at the overall process, okay? How would you deal with it, or what would you do if you have it, okay? So especially, for example, in reporting, many schools would say, I've never received a complaint about sexual harassment, cyberbullying, or any of those online safety cases. My students are angels. Okay, this might be the case, this might be true. But my question would be, now what if, one more student joined the schools who is not as angel as the rest of the students? Then how this case would be reported? Who would be responsible? What's the process that they would follow? Okay, at the end of the day, every school has some sort of an unwritten process. Talk to your teacher, talk to the social worker, talk to the principal, talk to your parent talks to me. Okay, it's there. There is a process to report one way or another, and school leadership would find out about this one way or another. But that's what we want to eliminate, the whole one way or another. It needs to be structured so that we can support it. If we know that a school is using this process, then, and that person is responsible for this process, we can provide him with additional training, we can provide him with resources, forms, documents, and best case scenarios and best practices, sorry, and that he could implement in his school. So that's what we will be looking for. And this takes us, the reason I started with that is technical security. So in technical security, we'll be looking at stuff like data backup, how often your data is backed up, what type of data is backed up, and who's responsible for that, and what do you include in the backup. What about malware protection? How would you ensure that your students are not hit or your network is not hit by a virus? So one of the common responses in here is, no, we don't have any devices. Our students don't have, and we didn't issue them any devices. They bring their own devices, or we really don't know, and like what kind of devices they use. So my question would be, what if one day, you allow students to bring their own devices? One of those devices has a malware, has a virus, and now is connected to your network. And how would you protect your network? How would you protect teachers' computers? So these are the type of questions we'll be looking at. And protecting personal information, again, this is, and I would say this aspect is way ahead of its time. So in many places all over the world, they have a specific, rigid, solid data protection act or data protection law. Okay, in here we do have, Dubai has a data protection law, Abu Dhabi has one, if I'm not mistaken, Sharjah is working on one, there is one also in the process on a federal level. Okay, but we are looking at a school level. And how do you protect your school community information? Okay, and some of the common issues that we encounter. Okay, as parents, let's not even look at it as a student, members of the school community. And I would put my kids in a school, they would graduate, they would move on, and years later, I would receive a marketing message, hey, we've lowered our rates, come and join us, or bring your kids. No, my kids have graduated. Okay, why am I still getting these messages? Who owns the right to contact me? Who owns the right to my number. And we've seen, you know, cases where documents and data are saved on uncontrolled thumb drives, and where documents are just printed, okay, without guidelines and without classification. And for example, in corporates and in government, we do use document classification. So every document would have a label, okay, restricted, confidential, private, and so on. And every type of those documents would have a way to process. Now, what about the school? I would expect a school would have a similar or different level of sensitivity when it comes to the information. Now, how those are protected, okay? Now, don't do this for the sake of evaluation. Do this for the sake of the school. And imagine, and I've seen this or heard about this, and the similar cases were reported where important documents were left on a disk, student incident reports, some confidential information, and some stuff like that is on a disk that is accessible by visitors or parents. Okay, so enforcing this policy, enforcing a data protection policy within the school would slowly over time change the whole culture. This is a confidential document, why it's printed? Okay, this is a sensitive document, why do you have it? Okay, who created this document, who printed this document? Like, that's the kind of things we are looking for to happen in the schools, not now, but because of the framework or because of the implementation of ACDAR eSafe School. Now, the next, before I move to education, are there any questions on infrastructure?
Please, if you have any question, posted in here so we can take it. Just want to honestly say something, Mr. Muhammad, about the e-safety. Things are happening. I mean, honestly, even if we don't want to wait for students' voice even to come to us, maybe we need to investigate a little bit. Even now, I can share with you now, one of our participants here, the account is for students. What I see is students like grade 6 or 7, and we had to do something to discover why one student is with us now and he's moving. I'm not sure where he's moving. So this is a live example.
Exactly.
So because, yeah.
Exactly.
So.
Like, now that everyone is connected, and when the framework started, this wasn't, you know, like, I would say, a problem. Okay, this was more of Khalifa empowerment program, being super cautious and providing, you know, an ahead of its time instructions for everyone. But right now, password security is critical. We've seen a lot of cases where an anonymous person would just jump into a Zoom or a team meeting, okay, sorry, not a meeting, a class, and, you know, through a couple of inappropriate words, say a couple of comments, and just disappear, okay? And then the student, you know, like, whom his credentials were used, will be either penalized or go through a lot of justifications and force the school to do a lot of paperwork, a lot of technical tracing to find out or to ensure that this student didn't do it. All of this could be avoided with a simple password security awareness training. Okay, make your password complex. Don't share it with anyone. Done. Okay, something simple like that. So thank you, Hunada, for the example.
Thank you. Someone is asking for like a further explanation about filtering and the connecting policy to the network. What is the connecting policy? So yeah.
Simply, you know, like, if the question came from someone who's not in an IT background, and I would understand. If it comes from an IT background, someone with an IT background, simply, and it's how you configure your firewall to protect data, to protect internet access in the school. So the IT guy would, you know, like, would definitely know it. So if you are using FortiGate or any other brand, I'm not recommending any brands, absolutely, but, you know, whatever firewall you are using in the school, usually this comes in as a built-in feature where you could configure and have profiles. Teachers are allowed to access, let's say, all websites. Students are allowed to access educational websites. Social media is allowed for school leadership, for example. And these type of websites are allowed for someone else. And we have a process in place to request exception. Basically, that's the whole thing about filtering. So if a teacher wants to access a certain website that they are not allowed to, and who do they contact? What's the process? Well, we have a process. You talk to that person, or you drop a line or an email, or you fill a form and you get access. So as long as everything is structured, it's clear to us.
Yeah, we have another 2 questions. We have 1 comment and 1 question. 1 question about how we document the management of the content, or content management, how the digital content, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And the other one about the cost of the protection or e-protection, saying that the schools might not be able to afford this. Well, honestly, I'm not going to answer this question, but I need to highlight something. It's the safety of the students, specifically now, the e-safety. There are something we cannot argue with. So student safety is essential. Now, how to manage that from financial perspective, this is, we'll leave it for you, honestly. As a SPIA, we will say, we need to ensure students are safe. This is out of question. Now, again, how to do that? It's up to you following this framework and how to manage your resources. We put the main focus points and how to ensure that we will find the right resources to apply it in this matter. We cannot say we don't have the financial ability to build like a fence for the schools. Because we have to have building for schools, right? Well, this is exactly the same. Student safety is a priority, out of the question. The e-safety, specifically during the pandemic, where the education system is changing. So, and now I'll leave it for you, Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you, Nada. On top of what Ms. Nada said, that it's important, it's critical, and the school should provide a safe environment. Every aspect in this framework was designed with cost in mind. Okay, and the framework could have been more rigorous, could have been 28 aspects actually. Okay, but that would have required a substantial investment by the schools. Everything we have in here actually is not, it's either something that's already taking place, and if it's not taking place, then that's something the school should work on, or something that can be done with internal resources, all the way from the top. Online safety leader, that's basically one of your employees, no extra cost. A group, that's your school community. A policy, that's a document you should have. And on top of this, actually, this document is currently prepared by Khalifa Empowerment Program and the Ministry of Education, and is sent for the Prime Office for approval. Once it's approved, we will send a template to all schools, so you don't have to even invest in this. Okay, if you need to develop your own now, sure, you can develop it, you can research it, you can work on it, and many schools actually have online safety policies nowadays. Acceptable use policy, that's an expectation. You should have a guideline, a set of guidelines for the use of technology in the school. And the behavioral policy provided to you. Reporting, that's a mechanism, not a tool, not something to invest in. Mobile devices, I'm not asking you to provide mobile devices, I'm asking how you manage mobile devices, if there is any. I'm looking for the process. Managing digital content, I'm not asking any school to invest in Facebook. No, you do have an account. How do you manage this account, and how do you manage your digital reputation? The same applies on infrastructure. Password security, this comes as a default with any platform or any software that you use in the school. If you are using Teams, there is a back end on Microsoft 365 where you can control this. And if you are using Zoom, the same thing applies. The IT guy would know. It's usually clicks, not efforts, not cost. It's something on an existing system where he enables or disables. Filtering, and it's an expectation for every school to have a firewall. If you don't have a firewall, then you are super exposed. Okay, and so far we haven't seen any school that that didn't have an existing firewall. Usually this is there already. The school has it. Technical security. I mean, who would use a PC nowadays without an antivirus? And what school wouldn't back up the critical data that they have? Registration data, financial data, HR data, student marks and grades, and so on. So cost is not a factor in here. Staff training, you don't have to bring a global speaker or a social media celebrity. This can be done with the school efforts, and there are many local organizations who are more than willing to support. Okay, community police, Sharjah police, and Akdar, they would send you speakers. And online safety education and digital citizenship. In any modern education system, it's an expectation for those to be embedded throughout the curriculum. So all of these don't require costs. I needed, like to clarify this. A school, of course, could invest, could go over and beyond. That's the school decision, but nothing in this framework would dictate the school to spend money to reach a certain level.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. We have many questions, but because our time is limited,
so we'll move on and we'll keep the questions all the way to the end.
Yeah, or maybe, I don't know about your time, I'm sure you are the busiest person actually, but maybe we will have like frequent asking questions, and maybe we'll send it to you, or I don't know. I mean, we will find a way to find answers to those questions.
Absolutely. I have no issue in any way you see fit, Ms. Hunada, and like maybe even a follow-up session, and if needed, and where it's just Q&A session, and that's it.
Yeah, maybe we need that, because I can see that more questions are coming in the chat, and yes, so we will try to have a follow-up session only with the questions. Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. So in the education aspect, we'll be looking at online safety education. Okay, so that's basically all types of knowledge shared in the school and that have to do with online safety for students, whether through the curriculum or through extracurricular activities and webinars and workshops and so on. So one of the things we'll be looking at when it comes to online safety education is this something happening an impromptu, or it's a planned program? Okay, a school could say, I've conducted 7 online safety awareness workshops. Great. Okay. When, few were last year, few were, and few years before that, and that's it. Okay. So was this part of a plan? That's what I'm going to, or what I would challenge. Okay. Is it part of a plan, or it's something just happening? Okay. Now, did this training impact your student? Okay. How aware are they of the overall online safety? And what type of resources available to your students? Okay. In digital citizenship, we'll be looking at digital citizenship and critical research, plagiarism, copyright, all those terminologies, and how they are communicated in the school, how your students are aware of this. Okay. Contribution of young people, this is the one we mentioned earlier. Are your students silent recipients in the overall online safety, or they have, as Hunada said, they have a voice? Can they contribute in the development of policy? Can they contribute in the development of training? Can they deliver training? Do you have some sort of a peer mentoring program? Like, all of these questions will be asked, and you would see these are all lined up in the framework, straightforward and simple for everyone to see. Okay. Now, staff training, this is a very important one. Staff training, and is there a program for your staff to learn about online safety? And was this training based on a gap analysis or training needs analysis, or it's just a training for the sake of training? Okay, so I'll be looking at that gap analysis. Why would someone on your payroll as a principal is taking child protection training, okay, or online safety training? Okay, and what was the reason behind it? So I wouldn't need to look at that gap analysis or that training needs analysis. Parental engagement, how engaged are your parents? What's their role in the overall online safety? How do you convey messages to them? Okay. And in the last element or pillar, we have monitoring and impact. So monitoring, how do you monitor online safety incidents? And whether, through doing that, manually, through software, through review of existing records, identifying patterns. Like a simple example on monitoring is, I'm a school leadership member. I see, let's say 3 or 4 or 5 on cyberbullying cases at a certain grade. Okay. Now, I consider this a pattern, and I develop an awareness program for that grade, okay, or for that grade level. That tells me that the school has identified a problem through monitoring, and anticipated the problem and actually did something before the next case of cyberbullying happens. And impact is basically how to measure the impact. Now, something really important is the colors in here. So you have 3 aspects highlighted in red. Okay, these are limiting judgment. These are very important. Now, what do we mean by a limiting judgment or a limiting aspect? I mean, you've been through multiple evaluations and you are aware of that. So a limiting judgment or limiting aspect is an aspect that won't allow you to get the accreditation if you don't pass it. You could have the best mark in everything else and not meet one of those 3, and you won't get the accreditation. Okay, why those 3 were selected? Because each one of them is super critical, super important, and have influence over other aspects like monitoring. If the school, in order for the school to have an effective monitoring, okay, they would need to work on their reporting and to have an effective reporting. In order to have an effective reporting, they would need clear policies that are communicated, So you see the link, all of these are linked. In here, staff training, once I train staff and I give them the knowledge that they need, staff could push for all of this, could ensure online safety education is covered, students are aware, everyone in the school community has the needed knowledge. And finally, online safety education, this is basically where I ensure that children and young people are aware. Now, each one of those aspects is graded on a scale of 5 to 1. Okay, 5 being non-existent and 1 being excellent. Okay, so that's basically the maturity level of the framework. So 5, I mean, we'll see this over and over again with different descriptors based on the aspect we are dealing with, but the general idea: 5, I don't have it. 4, working on it. 3, I have it. 2, I have it and I have a lot. 1, man, I'm the one who invented this aspect. I'm the best in this field. So basically, that's the progression for every aspect. Now, an overall or an average will be taken. Just wait, let me just jump. Yes, jump here. Okay. So this would take me to an average of all the aspects. So at the end of the evaluation visit, based on the scores you got, 5, 3, 4, 2, 1, 4, and whatever, an average will be calculated. And this would take you to either essential or basic. Okay, that's the minimum a school has to achieve, advanced, or excellent. So essential, that's 3.3 and lower, as you, again, 5 being the, and non-existent. So the higher the number, or the lower the number, the better performance you have. So 3.3 to 2.5, that's basic. 2.4 to 1.3, that's advanced. Less than 1.2, that's excellent. We are not expecting anyone to be excellent now, okay? For a simple reason, excellent requires a lot of efforts, okay? That's the over and beyond stage. So that might be our target in 2 or 3 years from now, okay? But right now, what we are looking for is essential. If schools meet essential, basically that means they do have policies, practices, procedures, documentations, and education and infrastructure sufficient enough to protect the students. So going to this, now, these are the maturity levels, the 5 maturity levels. Now, a school would have to go through a self-assessment. The self-assessment will be digital. One of the questions I went through the chat was the Word document, or basically, where can I put my input? We've tried to simplify it. You would see the system in a minute now, and you don't need any Word documents. There is a system, a simple click by click, where you can navigate, select your level, and basically conclude your self-assessment. So you will register. We will send you a guide on how to register, and we can explore this some more in the QA session, sure. And you can learn about the evaluation criteria for every aspect. You would have a clear descriptor, so you would know where you are standing, okay? And basically complete it and complete your self-assessment, and you'll be ready to be visited. Now, in an evaluation visit or the assessment visit, we'll be looking at, or we'll be expecting to see a representative of the SLT the principal, or like a VP, someone to represent him, and the social worker or the online safety lead. This person should be in the meetings. We should meet this person, whoever the school assigns, and we will meet a group of teachers, students. Because of COVID, we won't be meeting any students, but we will survey them. So we will send a survey link 6 or 7 days, 5 to 7 days before the visit day, so that you share with your school community. So parents and students would fill up that survey, and then we will discuss the survey results with you. And in here, and of course, the IT team or tech support, whoever you have and managing your IT infrastructure, that's the person we'll need to meet. Now, and once you complete that, once you complete the self-assessment, and the evaluation team will review the results, will share a time with you. Okay, usually there is enough time, like a minimum of 3 to 4 days before the visit. But again, this is and differs from entity to entity. SPIA would dictate and would tell us when, like what is the best practice and in SPIA schools. And then the visit will be conducted. Our main focus will be, gathering information through a professional dialogue. So I will have 2 sources of information, or sorry, 3 sources of information in my visit. My first one would be the evidences that the school uploaded. We'll talk about evidences in a minute. And the second one will be the professional dialogue I'll have with the school. Okay, so basically everything and anything that is said in the visit is an evidence. It's something I will have, and I'll use to support my judgment. Okay, and my third source of information is the survey results that we will share. So it's important, once you get that notification, once you get that survey email, you push it to everyone. You ensure that your school community fill that survey. A lot of the schools that we visited have actually learned a lot from the survey. They had certain set of expectations. Okay, we are doing our job very well. And then the survey told them something else. Okay, there was a communication issue. There was something not happening the way the school wanted it to be. Now, this would help the school and, tailor their messaging, tailor and customize their offerings to ensure that parents and students are getting exactly the knowledge and the information that we want them to get. So evidence upload. And there will be some guidelines that will be shared with you, but I need to emphasize on evidence upload. And evidence upload shouldn't be, when we say evidence, it doesn't mean, that schools should copy paste their entire server into the evidence folder or the evidence link that will be shared with you. No, simply we are looking for relevant evidences, a maximum of 1 evidence per aspect. This is really important. 1 evidence per aspect. You could have, like a PDF or a PowerPoint, and you could have the general information needed. And let's say, for example, staff training. So as per the framework, you need to evidence that you have a program, you have people who attended that program, you have training needs analysis in place, okay, and few key staff members of the online safety group, for example, have received an additional training more to their field. That's it. So these 4 or 5 pieces of information can be combined into a single PowerPoint of 4 or 5 slides, and saved as a PDF and uploaded into the evidence folder. What we get sometimes is certificates of every employee in the school, CVs of every employee in the school, documents from every employee in the school, recordings of trainings and hours and hours and hours of training and videos, and a lot of evidences that actually give the evaluator an indicator that, considering the school has uploaded a lot, and this may not be positive. This might mean, and especially if the content is irrelevant to online safety, this might be an indicator that the school doesn't understand online safety. Okay, so this actually would have the counter effect of the evaluator being more thorough, more rigorous, more into details to ensure that these documents were uploaded with knowledge and not just uploaded. So it's important, upload only the evidences relevant to the level where you are and have access to the rest. Throughout the evaluation visit, the evaluator might ask you, have you done this? Or for example, oh, I see in here that you had a plan for training. Have you conducted that training? Yes. Do you have an evidence on that? Here's a recording. Double click, you share your screen. Okay, done. We move on to the next aspect. Okay, but if you upload, like tons and tons and tons of videos where the evaluator or the team before visiting the school go through all that prep and go through all these documents, there's a good chance that a lot of unrelated information will be uploaded. This might give a negative indicator or basically influence the evaluator to understand that the school doesn't understand online safety. So I can't emphasize enough on evidence should be precise, to the point, exactly the ones, and that you need to evidence your level, and have the rest with you, accessible during the visit. Feel free, the evaluator will give you time to share your screen and share your documents. Now, and we spoke about this, again, limiting judgment. You need to get at least level 3 in staff training, online safety education, and monitoring. As we said, those 3 are important. Now, we have the 3 next steps. So we have the online safety report, basically the evaluation report. Once the visit is concluded, the team will go through multiple stages of, like judgment, discussion, evidence review, and then few quality assurance steps to provide the school with a final report. That report will have the school's an overall level, accreditation, a set of improvement actions, and these improvement actions are not related to are not an indicator of the level. A school could be at an advanced level and would still get improvement actions because technology never stops. Risks are there every day, and these are some tips for you basically to improve. Okay, so you will get the improvement actions, and there will be a desktop study. Now, the desktop study is only for the schools that don't meet the essential level, schools that don't get to basic, don't get to this area. Okay, now in this case, the judgment is not final. As we said, we are here to support you. So we would tell you, here is your report. Here are the improvement actions, a set of improvement actions that you need to do. Okay, and we'll get back to you in a month. In a month's time, we won't even visit you. Simply just upload your evidences into this link, and we will review it, and we will get back to you if the evidences are sufficient to prove that, yes, improvement have been concluded, then done. If not, then we will basically give another set of improvement, or we will visit the school in the next evaluation cycle. So it's really simple. At the end of the day, we need schools to improve. Now, that basically was the end of the theory part, and we will now jump into the system real quick, and we will go through the ESAF school platform. Okay, now by the time I jump into the ESAF school platform, do we have any questions? I would assume the answer is yes.
Yes, they do have questions actually. And we have many questions. And someone said, I have a question, so please go ahead. And some of the questions, how many visits per year? And I think you explained that, Mr. Muhammad, that it will be 1 visit, except if they didn't make it to the accepted level or to specific level. And there is an interesting question regarding that they understood the idea, they understood the framework, but how can we support them to improve with the specific programs and ideas? Well, I mean, I will hand it over to Mr. Muhammad in a second, but from SPIA perspective, as an authority, we are helping with the framework to, and of course, to understand where your school is. So the assessment, this is the main thing. Now, how to improve your schools, you need to tell us as an academy. So the academy will support you if there is a specific area you think that your school couldn't improve. So you need to tell us what kind of a program you will need. So the academy will provide or will arrange this for you. So, I mean, you can see that there are many indicators, and we would love to support you. However, again, the school responsibilities is to understand where their area for improvements, what do they need exactly, and to manage that as well. It's exactly like the students learning and teaching and everything else. So, and we will be here for you, honestly, just if you tell us specific things that you want us to create programs for it, and we will take it from there. Yeah, for you, Mr. Muhammad.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nada. No, and actually, the ESAF school, the framework itself would support you. SPIA and OLITU, they have an amazing support system. The academy is doing a lot. So having a central location for training, okay, and a location that is, I would say flexible, agile, could easily adopt, incorporate, and introduce new materials, new courses as per the demand. Okay, that's a bonus. That's something great that you have that many other countries don't have. So simply, as Hunada said, and look through your improvement actions, and we'll be working hand in hand with the academy and with the SPIA. And you would say, well, obviously, I need to go through a training on this aspect. Okay, that's a weakness I've identified. So I need to work on this. The academy will support, ACDAR would support you, and we are all here to help. So looking at the ESAF school framework, so it's basically esafschool.ae. Don't worry about it right now. This will be sent to you in the memo, that will be shared by SPIA. And so ESAF school, and ESAF school, let me just go to the homepage. Okay, so here's your homepage, the online safety review tool for school. And this is the landing. Basically, you can understand more, know more about the initiative. What is ACDAR? What do they do? And you can see some news. We didn't, add news yet. Hopefully, our next piece of news would be all UAE schools have achieved essential level. In here, you have the awards that the program have achieved. And then you can either register or sign in. Now I'll start with the registration. We've tried to simplify the registration process. So just hold on on the registration until we finalize school list names and then the technical part of this in order to make the process even smoother. So once you get the notification, commence with the registration. So in here, I will have my name, let's say John Smith, okay. Email address john@supercool.com. Okay, add a password. Done. Okay, now in here in the organization name, all you have to do is just type a part of your school name. Okay, so all the schools will be pre-populated in the system. I will confirm with my tech team if SPIA is there, is included, is the most recent list of SPIA schools is there. But all I have to do is just type a part of the school name, let's say Sharjah, and add my school ID. This is really important. And next. Okay. Oh, sorry. So in here, it didn't recognize the word in Sharjah. Just a second. No. Okay. Let's actually try another Arabic name. Al Khalil bin. Okay, so this is a school in Sharjah, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Okay, so my bad, and this is in the demo account. So in the demo account, I guess it's not linked to the actual database, so it's not popping up. So naturally, once I add the school name or part of the school name would pop up in here. So I will just type part of it. Let's say Indian School of Sharjah, Al Hikmah Private School, Al Hikmah. I'll just type Al Hikmah, and the suggestions will pop up. I will select my school. This way, I will associate my account with my organization, okay? And simply fill up the rest of the information. I won't need this screen if the school is already existing or if the school is linked. I will continue through this, and then a notification email or activation email will be sent to me and to the back-end team at the ESAF school. They will confirm your account, and then you can use it. Now, here is something important that I would need to emphasize: use school email. So, and using Gmail, using a Hotmail makes it difficult to map or align users with the schools. The best advice or the best way is you would have a school email at schoolname.com or at schoolname.ae. Use that when it comes to registration. And as a school, even in the future, if God forbid, whoever is responsible for this leaves the school, someone else could take over, access that account, retrieve credentials, retrieve data, and continue the online safety journey. So once you activate your account, now you can sign in. Okay, so this basically would take you into your system. And in here, you would have the questions and all of the aspects. So let's start with the self-assessment process. So the first time when I get into the system, I would have in here a heat map. This heat map will have two colors. The blue one indicates the national level. This is an average of all the schools in UAE that have completed the self-assessment so far. And the green one is my level. So the first time you log into the system, you won't see the green one. There won't be a green line because you haven't done that yet. So once we are done with this, you jump into questions. It will take you to your 4 pillars or elements. Okay, so I'll start with the first one. Okay, sorry. So I'll start with the first one, policy and leadership. I'll go to policy and leadership. In here, I have the aspects, and in here I have, I have the strands and aspects. So I'll go to the first one. Okay, so in here, I will have the descriptors, the 5 levels. Without this text, how to achieve the next level, I would have a clear descriptor for everyone. So for 5, there is no online safety policy. For 4, the school is in the process of online safety policy. For 3, the school has an online safety policy which is effective, meets the school safeguarding obligations. This may be a national policy or at least reflect. So I will read a clear descriptor, and based on that, I would know where's my level, where am I standing as a school when it comes to online safety. Okay, and at the end of the day, as we said, the objective is to support. So you don't have to exaggerate. It's not a competition again. So let's say I've started developing a policy. Yes, I'm at 4. My policy is under development. Okay, so if I select 4, this means the evaluator won't scrutinize or won't basically challenge the school into aspects of 3 and 2 and 1. An easy way to do the self-assessment is just do 1 across the board. You know, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. We are excellent, done. Okay, but guess what? That won't go. The evaluator would ask about every component, every evidence, every document to support your self-assessment. Okay, so, and at the end of the day, you may or may not get the type of support that you really need. Okay, so be honest with your team as a principal. Get your team, get your group. Okay, what's the level in every aspect? Now I will jump into the into 3 aspects: the limiting judgment. Okay, so I will go with an online safety education. Sorry.
So,
if you would allow me this, and I'll be done. You know, like, and then we can stay for questions if you want, or we can, you know, like, and have questions all day long. But let me just do online safety staff training. Okay, so in here in online safety education, this is a limiting aspect. So you see the expectation for an essential level is a planned online safety program. Students are aware of online safety issues and can recount how to stay safe online. A range of relevant online safety resources are used. So the evaluation team will be looking for those 3 statements. and evidence on those three statements. Okay, is there a planned program, and are students aware, and is there a range of resources? Okay, it's that simple. You don't have to upload evidences about COVID-related training. You don't have to upload evidences about how to use Teams and how to use Zoom and online safety. It's specific to online safety, and it's specific to those three statements. Maybe you are at a higher level. That's a possibility. In here, you have the descriptor for the higher level. Is online safety part of discrete lessons? Is it part of the wider curriculum opportunities? And are there opportunities for students to evaluate, or opportunities to evaluate student progress in terms of online safety? So if this is something you could evidence, then self-assess at 2. Okay, and then in the evaluation session, like through professional dialogue and discussion, and the evidences you've uploaded, your final level will be sent to you in the report. But at the end of the day, the objective is not to go for 1 if you are not at a 1. If you go to 1, and let's say for one reason or another, and that is accepted as a judgment, or you have enough evidences but no real application in the school, you would lose the support that you would have gone if you were at a 4 or a 3, and in order to move up to the next level. So that's something you should consider. The same thing applies when it comes to staff training. Okay, so for staff training, there is a planned program, and this program is regularly revised. And there are training needs analysis, or basically gap analysis, and there is an evidence that key members, basically the online safety officer, have received additional training beyond awareness, and the online safety can demonstrate how their professional expertise and has been sustained. Okay, basically, if those could be evidenced, then the school is at an essential level. It's simple, straightforward. Just go through the descriptor, and you won't have any issues. So once you conclude and you go all the way to the end, your indicator in here, let me just, you would have, yes, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's just 12 o'clock and the Academy has another training, and I know it's really interesting and we want more and more.
I'm done. I'm absolutely done. Now, all they need is just look at this number. Once this number gets to 25%, that means the school have completed their part. So there are other 3 parts that need to be done by the evaluation team and the QA team and so on. So once you get to 25% and you have a full green and heat map, okay, then you've completed your self-assessment and you are ready to be visited. And thank you.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I have to say, thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Thank you a lot. Honestly, that was very engaging. And I can see from our participants and our principals, they were extremely engaged. And I can see that they want the recording, they want the PowerPoint, and they want another session. So maybe if your time will allow to have another session, and they don't want to break, according to some of them, this is what they're saying. So, and they want even more links that to understand more about this. I would say I have actually 2 questions for you, Mr. Muhammad. Now, the next step, what would be the next step for our principals to receive the link for the?
So the next step would be, and you would receive an email and with the framework in Arabic and English, and then the eSafe School website and the system guidance, basically to take you through how to, create an account. So you will have that guide, you will create your account, and you will start the self-assessment. Now, naturally, I would take you through the normal timeline, but again, SPIA will have 100% authority in, and deciding or setting your time. So usually post-training, it takes schools, and up to maximum of 2 weeks, week to 2, to do the self-assessment. Many schools do their self-assessment within the first 3 days or 4 days of the evaluation visit. Okay, and then once you complete your self-assessment, you'll be sent an invitation, or not an invitation, I would say, you know, like you will be notified of your visit date.
Yeah.
You will be given a time to upload evidences. In the invitation or in the notification letter, you would have a link where you can upload all your evidences with guidelines on what type of evidences to upload. And basically, once you complete all of this, the evaluation team will come and visit you. Now, the notification will have existing Teams link, will have an existing evidence link, like everything is there set out for the school. All you have to do is upload evidences into the link and join the meeting on time, and that's it.
Excellent. Now, let me, I'm going to summarize what you've said again. So now you actually, our schools, you received already the frameworks. You received both frameworks earlier with our email. So, and we asked the principals to assign the e-safety officers. So at the moment, what you need to do to study these frameworks until you receive our email with the links that Mr. Muhammad mentioned. So SPIA will send you the link to register in the website. The website is technically the self-assessment. So once you understand the framework, once you understand your schools, you understand the evidence you have, you will start the self-assessment where we ask you to have the self-assessment and we give you a specific period of time to finish it. And then after that, we will, of course, the review visits will start. So now what you need to do to ensure that you understand your schools well, you understand the frameworks, and to understand the role of e-safety, and of course, start thinking of how can you make your schools safe 100% for our students. And Mr. Muhammad promised us with another session, maybe next week. And this is a promise, and this is live promise in front of 372 educators.
We will have we will have a session purely for Q&A.
Inshallah.
So maybe week, Monday, and like Sunday or Monday, I'll coordinate with. We will have that time for questions. Ask as many questions as you want, and I could even bring like a team with me or someone else also. So we'll take all your questions in Arabic.
Wonderful. That is excellent. And once you understand the framework, I'm sure you will have more questions. I received like 10,000 questions about the recording. The recording will be on SIA. So it will be on SIA, inshallah, as soon as we edit it. And I promise I'll do my best to upload it as soon as possible. But there is a process. There is a QA process for the recording, and hopefully you will find it soon on SIA. And yeah, well, thank you very much. Thank you for Dr. Muhammad and his work with us. Thank you for Aqdar, of course, and thank you for principals, our principals, and our educators. We'll see you actually in less than 50 minutes, less than 50 minutes in another session with the parents, managing parents' expectations during the pandemic. And yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Hunada, for being an amazing host. Thanks a lot. And thanks to the unknown soldier, Miss Fatma Zorbi, for translating. I know I talk a lot and I talk fast. So keep it with me and translating everything. Thank you, Fatma. This was really great. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And we really hope to see you very soon in your schools. And, together we will create a safer environment for our students. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. We'll see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.